Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today we have part one of a two-part series that I am doing with Jason Cutter on transforming your business from being an order taker to a quota breaker. And I am excited because Jason is the CEO of Cutter Consulting Group, and he sees himself as a sales success architect. And he does anything from training to scripting to sales tech. He helps small businesses create scalable inside sales teams. And his newest program is called Authentic Persuasion, with the goal of helping people to go from order taker to quota breaker. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Kim. I'm super excited to talk about this topic and, writing and business and where all of that, which some of it's good for me and some of it is not my strength.
Yes, because right now you're in the final stages of your book. And
Yes.
That must be an exciting time.
It is. The final stages is definitely exciting and everything coming together. It's definitely been a journey in my head and through a process as well.
And we're going to talk about that writing journey in the second episode that we're going to do together. But let's start. What is the name of your book going to be?
Selling with Authentic Persuasion, Transform from Order Taker to Quota Breaker.
I love it. Love it. All right, Jason. So why don't you take some time, introduce yourself, and share a bit of your story with us.
Yeah, so as you had mentioned in the intro, I am a consultant. I focus on sales success for individuals, for sales teams, mostly companies that have inside sales like telephone sales, where they're hoping to help somebody move forward with some purchase decision over the phone, consultative type sales where there's, a clear fit for the right people and, there's not a good fit for the wrong people. And so that's what I focus on. I do everything from mindset to training, to sales, to scripting, to, like you said, the technology piece and marketing. And I've been in sales for a long time. Like a lot of people, I fell into sales. I wouldn't say accidentally because, I made the decision. It wasn't like I tripped one day and fell into an office and started on the phone in sales. But it was literally not my plan and not something I wanted to do when I grew up, like most people. And, the funny part and where I really love helping people now in consulting, as well as what I've done in my success in sales, comes from the fact that for me, my path is a windy mess. I have been all over the map as far as my career and life. And I feel like a lot of that comes into the authenticity of helping people and being real with people. I mean, my bachelor's degree is in marine biology. I spent years tagging sharks. I worked at Microsoft doing tech support for a couple of years. I mean, I grew up as a shy, awkward, only child, late bloomer to two very analytical parents. Yet here I am as a sales consultant, which on one side doesn't make any sense. And on the other side, it lends itself really well to this authentic persuasion kind of method that I teach people.
Well, if you can negotiate sharks, I guess you can negotiate people.
Well, and it's funny because you can't really negotiate with sharks, especially once they get to a certain size. When they're bigger than you can't really negotiate. But funny side story, one of the things that I did was tagging great white sharks, and this is near Santa Cruz, California. And my job, because I was the young guy on the boat, right? I'm 19, 20, 21 years old. My job was to take the long pole and push the 18-foot great white shark away from the bait that was hanging on the side of the boat. And so I had to convince the shark to not eat the piece of, fish or seal that was there. And sometimes I did a good job. Sometimes I didn't.
Now, were you ever in the water with the sharks?
Not with great whites, no. That was definitely from a boat, and illegal in California to be in a cage. So that was just from the boat. With smaller sharks, up to 3, 4, 5 feet, definitely in the water, in the estuary, in the slough. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in the water with smaller sharks.
So how do you tag a shark if you're not in the water with them?
A long pole with a sharp tip. That's how you do it.
Okay.
And the other thing that we used to do with blue sharks is you wouldn't be in the water with them. They'd be swimming around, and sometimes we would just literally reach over the side of the boat and grab them with our hands and pull them into the boat by hand, and then hold them down and tag them and weigh them and measure them.
So obviously those are the smaller sharks.
Yeah, up to like 4 feet or so. You're just reaching over and grabbing a shark. Why not?
It's funny. I've actually watched animal shows where I've seen that done, but you don't, usually on these shows, it's such a serious thing to get this shark into the boat, right? And you're like, oh yeah, we just grabbed them and threw them in, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's, again, and then people listening to this and people, when I tell the story, they think it like just ridiculous because you couldn't imagine it. But yeah, I mean, it's only a 3 or 4 foot, shark. So why not just grab it?
Yeah. And I mean, the truth is, once they're out of the water, it's not that they can't hurt you, but they're a lot less they're more helpless when they're out of the water.
Yeah, you just got to have the person who's holding the head pay very close attention to what they're doing. That's pretty much it. That was the rule.
Did you ever get injured at all?
No, not really. Not by any sharks. It's funny because I thought for the longest time what would have been cool is some kind of non-life-threatening shark scar, like being bit and having like this cool thing on my leg that I could point to. But no, that never happened. Some fishing related, equipment related stuff, but never shark related, other than the fact that their skin is like sandpaper. If you've ever felt it, it's like sandpaper, and they say it's true. So when you're holding one like a log at your chest and it starts rolling and twitching, then it burns. But other than that, no. And of course, all of this is totally related to my sales consulting.
Well, I don't know. I think sometimes sales does feel like shark wrangling. So
100%. Dealing with actual sharks in the water is way easier.
Yeah.
They're very predictable. They go one direction. They have one thing in mind, and that's very easy to predict and mitigate.
Cool. So then you worked at Microsoft, and so what really got you into sales, though? What kind of...
For me, it was Microsoft ended, the contracts ended. They moved all the jobs to China and India for the first time in outsourcing, which now people take for granted and assume has just always been that way. And I needed a job. Family friend said, hey, there's a guy who's growing his mortgage business. You should do that. It was the height of, or getting to be the height of, the real estate boom at the time, 2002, 2003. And so I went into it. It seemed like it wasn't selling. It wasn't sales. It didn't require a lot of convincing. I didn't get any training, and I made lots of mistakes that cost me lots of money because I was still doing it wrong, and learned a lot of lessons that I still use to today in myself and for others in that process, which just started me on this journey of selling and sales.
Mm-hmm. Now, when did you decide to start your own consulting group?
So mentally, I decided to do that around 2014, 2015. It didn't actually take shape until the end of 2018. Mm-hmm. But another sidebar, I was working as a government contractor overseas as a civilian, a lot of time on my hands. And I realized everything that I had done in sales and business would be the perfect use as a consultant because I've done it internally. Now I could do it externally. So that's great. So I started the process of getting my MBA, which I earned in 2017. And before I could actually go into consulting, somebody I knew had made me an offer to come work for him. And so I essentially worked as a consultant, not with that title, but with that kind of approach internally, and was like the one who fixed departments, started offices, built out systems and processes internally as an employee, did that for 3 years. And then when that ended, I was like, okay, now is the time for me to go officially into this and do this for other people on, contract basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is really cool. I like your story. And what it shows me is the fact that sometimes we don't know what we're going to kind of fall into. I never thought that I would be a publisher. It was not something in my game plan for my life. And yet, certain circumstances happened, and I started doing freelance writing, realized how much I loved it, and then people wanted additional services, and within a year I've got a publishing company.
That's awesome.
So like, I think the point is that as an entrepreneur, even though if you've never done this before, it wasn't in your game plan, but you don't have to have had the past to be able to be an entrepreneur now. And many of the lessons that you've learned along the way in different areas actually help you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So for me, the toughest part was the mental. For the longest time, I beat myself up in my own head about my windy path and how I didn't follow the standard model of what you're supposed to do. Go to college, you get a degree, get a career, have a career, start a family, do all those things. And I didn't. And then I realized later on, like, those experiences actually made me who I was, and the ability to do what I do with a wide range of different people and conversations and persuading. And all of that was actually very valuable. Plus being self-aware enough to know what my strengths are and what I'm really good at, and what I can really do to benefit other people, and what that value actually is, and leaning more on that.
Well, let's kind of get into our main topic for today, and that's transform from an order taker to a quota breaker. And I know you've got some things prepared, so I'm going to let you loose for a bit to share what you've got prepared, and then we're going to talk about it.
So I think the biggest thing is that, in that formula, which is authentic persuasion, there's two important pieces. And, like you just mentioned, what I see a lot in the world of people who are supposed to be selling, right? Whether you're in a cubicle on a phone and you're supposed to be, closing deals, or you're a coach or a consultant, and there's a sales aspect prior to you getting to do what you really want to do, which is that coaching or that consulting. There's a sales piece. So I'm not just talking to, who you think, okay, they're in a call center, or they're on a car lot trying to sell a car. I say this all the time, everything in life is sales. And so it's very important, but there's a lot of people who operate like an order taker. They're giving information, they're hoping someone buys from them, and they don't want to persuade because they see that as manipulation, and they're afraid that, to be successful in sales takes being that person you see in the movies that's just ripping people off, manipulating, lying, using sales tactics, using these closing lines, trapping people, using NLP, and doing all of these things that people don't want to do because they don't like when it's done to them. So they choose to do nothing. So what I teach and help people to understand is the power in authentic persuasion, which the first part, on the practical side, is knowing who you are, being self-aware, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, understanding your strengths. Like, what is it that you really are good at? For me, I'm really good at solving problems, taking things apart, understanding how it works. I'm terrible at putting things back together. So if I take apart the remote for the TV, we'll just buy a sec. I'll know how it works, but we'll need to buy another one because I won't know how to put it back together. It's also why I don't work on my own car, because I can take it apart. I just can't put it back together. So, but I want to know how it works, and then I want to solve problems, and I want to make things better. When I was younger, I didn't really think I liked people because I was a late bloomer, and people were strange to me and not nice growing up. And so I focused it on certain things. That's why the sharks, right? That's problem solving and understanding. And then I shifted to people. So what are your strengths?
And they don't talk back.
They don't talk back. It's very nice, right? Like, it's way better than when I worked in a restaurant waiting tables and people would talk back or want, certain things. So, it was always easier. And like, I learned what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And then also the other thing from a practical side is that we all have fears.
Yes.
The thing is, there's a part of all of our brains that is still stuck thousands and thousands of years ago on the savannah, on the plains, in a cave, fighting for survival, worried about eating the wrong berry, worried about animals that might jump out and kill us at any moment. And our brain still thinks that. So it holds people back. Like, if you call somebody and they don't buy from you, that means nothing, and it's not going to kill you. But our ego
Thinks
is
it
so
is.
afraid of that, because an attack at our ego is the same thing. They might as well had shot us and we're now bleeding to death. That's our brain doesn't know the difference, right? And so
Yeah.
a lot of people who are in sales, they're afraid of moving conversations forward because their ego is keeping them in their comfort zone. And so that's one of the things too, is understand where the fear is stopping you, understand where that is keeping you from what you want, and then working on that, right? Some people, like I talked to somebody yesterday, no fear of public speaking, no fear of asking for sales, definitely is never going to bungee jump, right? So people have different fear levels in different areas in their life. And so it's okay.
Yeah, that's probably
Where do you
me.
have no fear? That's right. That's me too, right? Like,
Put me on a stage.
I am.
Let me sell.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
am not bungee jumping.
No, bungee jumping, skydiving, none of that makes sense to me. I'm exactly the same way. And so it's really about, where are you confident in your life in other areas, and where can you apply that in what you do for the sales side? So that's some of it. And the other part on the authentic piece is really about understanding why you want to be successful in whatever you're doing. So if you have some sales aspect, why? I mean, the first thing I have everyone do that I work with, create a vision board. Might sound silly, might sound like a weird art project. Create a vision board of what you want and why, so that when somebody says no, you know why you want to pick up the phone and ask somebody else again to try to buy from you, and what it's all for, right? What's important to you at this moment in your life? Buying a house, buying a car, going on vacation, having savings, doesn't matter, right? It's individual. So that's the authentic piece.
Well, when you're talking about taking things apart and not able to put them back together, my dad was a pretty smart man, and very good with computers, incredible with people, had good professional acumen. Like, he was just this really great person, but he wasn't really good at fixing things. He had enough knowledge to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And it was funny because there was quite a few times, because my husband's like the ultimate computer guru, electronic person, and his nickname is MacGyver because he can just fix just about anything. And sometimes with a roll of duct tape and a paper clip. Like, he's just that type of person, right? And I can remember my dad would call, and my dad didn't call very often, but every once in a while he would call and, get chatting, and he'd say, "Hey dear, how you doing?" And we chat, and invariably the conversation would go, "My dear, is Ross around by any chance?" And I already knew what had happened. His dad had tried to fix something and it didn't go well. So, him and my husband would talk, and then the next time we went up to visit, Ross would bring all of his tools, and him and my dad would fix whatever it is my dad had tried to fix and couldn't.
That's awesome. Well, and I think what's interesting is if we look at that too, you said your dad knew enough to be dangerous, which I think everyone knows someone like that, or we have an area in our life like that. I see a lot of people who are in sales that are kind of that same way, or should be selling, where they think they know enough to be dangerous, but they're not effective, right? Like, they're more of a hazard to themselves and others because they're missing the pieces of, and the knowledge and the wisdom and the skills to put that thing back together, right? To make that sale happen. But they think they know it, right? They think they know sales. Hey, I know sales. I know coaching. I know consulting. Like, I'm really good. Like, but do you know sales?
Yeah. And, I think as an entrepreneur, kind of touched on that in the beginning for many entrepreneurs, and I especially see this more in professionals and, like you said, coaches and consultants. Sales becomes the S word. It's like the necessary evil that they have to do to get to what they really want. And I think that perception, that mindset really needs to change, because you can't really grow a business without some sort of sales system. And for me, the sales part of my business is actually the beginning of a new relationship.
It is.
That's when I get to start to know people, is through that sales process. And, I'm like everybody else. I don't get 100% yeses. I get yeses, I get nos, and I get the, you know what, it's not the right time. Those are the three things I
Yeah.
get. And so, but the relationship, that's what I focus in on, is the relationship, because that's, to me, the valuable part. And I find when you focus in on that, it makes the selling part a lot easier.
And I think the key is to focus on relationships, because it's all personal, right? Like there's terms now floating around. People might be familiar with this, like B2B, right? So there's business to business, somebody who's selling software or something to a company. Then there's B2C or D2C, which is direct to consumer, business to, consumer, right? I'm selling something to an individual. And then there's people who are now pushing more of the H to H, which is human to human. Like no matter what it is, even if you're the marketing director at a company or you're somebody struggling with writing a book, then it's still a human. It's me as a human dealing with you as a human. How can I help you? How can we build a relationship? How can I care about you? And there's a large part of the sales world and people who are in sales who think that's soft and maybe that's weak, and that's not what sales is about. Sales is about closing deals and moving on, right? And derogatory term like bro culture, which is just like all about what you see. It's the Wolf of Wall Street. It's the boiler room type of sales attitude. But that's not what people want. I mean, it works to a certain extent. People can pull it off, but that's not what they want. They want the relationship. They want to know you care about them. And then this is the part where people struggle and fail on the sales side, is they want to start building a relationship. They care. They lots of rapport, lots of empathy, maybe even some questions, but then they're not moving it forward towards the relationship. And a good example I use all the time, because most people can relate, is courtship and dating, right? So imagine you want to go out with somebody. You go out on one date. At the end of the date, you're like, okay, that was fun. If you ever want to do this again, just let me know. Right. And then you just walk away. And then that's it. And that's what people do in sales, right? They don't
That's
say,
a cool
this was
analogy.
good.
I like that.
I think this is a really good fit. I would like to see where this goes. What are you doing on Friday? Right. Like moving it forward in the conversation towards the relationship, right? Like if you're in a dating relationship, theoretically, some aspect of that is this a long-term fit? Could this be someone I'm going to be with long-term, and or marriage, and or kids, wherever you want to go with it? And not just, hey, we just had coffee once and this, let me know. And same thing with sales. Like a lot of what you're talking about and what I help people with is that is literally the start of the relationship. Even if you're selling software to a company, once the sale closes, now the work begins. Same thing with consultants and coaches. So you've got to take it forward. You got to keep moving forward if it's a good fit, with the intention of like long-term.
Yeah. And it was funny. Like I told you, I got a new client this morning. Well, her and I get on the phone, and, and this doesn't always happen, but it was one of those days where within 5 minutes, we realized she's 1 year older than me. So we realized that at the same age, we got engaged. At the same age, we got married. At the same month, like we got married in the same month, 1 year apart. We had our first children the same month, 1 year apart. Like it was like hilarious. We spent the whole first 20 minutes of the phone call laughing because there was just so much similarities. And I think that's something that's key. I work with a lot of very diverse people, but there's always commonalities that you can draw from. But one thing that you really were talking about, and let's focus in on that for a few minutes, is how do you, you're having this amazing conversation, you're developing that relationship, you're feeling really good about this potential client. How do you transition that into, let's say, a soft close? Because not everybody's ready for a full close, but like, what are some of the ways that you can do like what they call like a soft or trial close to see interest level?
I mean, for me, it's making that transition from the rapport, the empathy, the getting to know you, to building trust. And the way to do the empathy and trust step is asking questions and digging deep and asking as many questions as you can to get as deep as they will let you with whatever information. And the fundamental thing that you have to be able to answer if you want to be a selling professional, again, in a cube or as a consultant, whatever that looks like, is you have to know, why do they need what you have to sell if it's a good fit? Now, obviously there's times when it's not a good fit, right? No, I can't help you. You need to go do something else. Here's a recommendation. Here's a referral. Best of luck with that, right? And that's a whole different topic. But if it's a good fit, you need to know, why do they need what you have to offer for their reasons, not why you have the features, not what's in the brochure, not why you think you're so amazing, not what your Yelp reviews say about you. Like, nobody cares about that stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
They care about themselves. It's what's in it for me. And that's all that matters. And so as a sales person or a person with some sales aspect, you've got to understand, why do they want it? And as soon as you uncover that, then it's game on in the conversation, because now you're taking what they need and want, and then you've diagnosed what it is, and then you're now prescribing like a doctor, and you're telling them, okay, based on what you said and based on X, Y, and Z, here's why this would be the best fit for you. Okay. And then, kind of like that doctor analogy, is you just assume, like, there's trial close, there's soft close, there's hard close, there's all these things. I just assume you have problem X, I have solution X. Okay, the next step is, let's go ahead and get you started, right? Like, literally, I've told people that, okay, so based on this information, it sounds like the best thing to do is to work together, and for you to sign up for this program, I need to get some information from you. Go ahead and grab your credit card while I get some info from you. Like, we're just done. I don't even need to ask you if you'd like to do it, because you've given me permission in this conversation to explore. We've explored. You've come to me with a broken leg. I've diagnosed the broken leg. Now we're going to fix the broken leg. Any questions? That's it.
Oh, I really like that. You know, and
the thing is I wouldn't say get away with it, but when you do it from a place of caring and empathy and knowing what's best for the people you can help, and knowing what the outcome will be with you and what the outcome is like without you and your help, then it comes from a different place of power, where it's like, I'm doing this for you because it's my duty and responsibility. If we hang up the phone and you don't buy from me, I don't know what's going to happen to you.
And I mean, I know for some people, what you've just said probably is going to scare them to pieces, because that's probably something so new and revolutionary to them. But I remember the first time that, I don't use quite that wording. I'm probably a little softer in my wording, but I remember the first time I really felt that kind of attitude, that I could just assume the sale. And it was scary. I didn't want to do it because it kind of goes, it made me feel uncomfortable. But I remember when I did it and the person said, okay, yeah, here's my information. Let's get started. And I went, it's a good thing they couldn't see my face. It was over the phone, because I'm like, oh,
that worked.
Right? Like, on the inside, I'm going, yes, 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 right? But it does. Like, you have to know that what you provide is valuable, and is valuable to that person. And here's the thing, by assuming the sale, if the person's not really ready to move forward, they are going to tell you no.
They will stop you. Let them stop you. Don't stop yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we get in our minds, we assume they're not going to buy. And so we have to change that mindset and assume they are going to buy.
And as we assume, like, this is what I see a lot, and this is where that order taker category comes in, is they assume that the order taker type person assumes that the prospect's not going to want to buy, doesn't understand why they would want to buy, doesn't see the value, and then also either can't afford it or isn't willing to pay for it.
Wow. I think we've hit a really good point where we can kind of close off this section, and then we'll pick up the conversation, because I know you still have some more stuff to share. So how can people connect with you? And we'll continue this in part 2.
The simplest way that I have been doing recently is if you go to jasoncutter.com, jasoncutter.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hub for lots of different things. So I have my consulting website. I have the Authentic Persuasion website. I'm very active on LinkedIn, but if you go to jasoncutter.com, like all of it's there with a hub of buttons to find various resources, courses, programs that I have, and get in touch with me through that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. This has been Jason Cutter and Kim Thompson-Pinder on the Author to Authority podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to tune in to the next episode, where we are going to continue this conversation, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.